You are listening to the e-flux podcast.
The following conversation was recorded before the launch of Dorit Chrysler's album, Calder Plays the Theremin at e-flux, on February 23, 2023. Dorit Chrysler is a Berlin-based composer and sound artist, and co-founder of the New York Theremin Society. Her work explores new applications of the theremin in various forms.
Dorit, thank you so much for joining us. I'm so happy to record this podcast with you.
Thanks for having me.
You were commissioned by the Museum of Modern Art to create a sound piece for the exhibition Alexander Calder, Modern from the Start. What's the link between Calder and the theremin?
Well, for me, it's a very obvious one. They both were modernists in sound and art around the same time. I tried to find out whether they actually had contact with each other, whether they knew each other in the period that Leon Theremin had his studio across the street from the MoMA, actually in the mid-20s, but couldn't find it out. When I went to the Calder Foundation's offices, and there were all these mobiles standing around, it was for me a very clear, immediate connection.
Like in its physical form?
There was such an organic way of the big mobiles in that office that usually in a museum there are all these, walls from the from the person that is seeing the object to the object itself. And there it was just in a very natural way. And Sandy Calder was just moving them around. And suddenly, it became very clear that the synergy of the movements to sonify that with the theremin. So basically that the mobiles turn into the music instrument and the theremins just provide the electromagnetic field. Because with the theremin, I also think that, you are the instrument and not the theremin itself, your emotions.
So your interactions with the sculptures were sort of part of the piece during your commission?
Absolutely. So when the idea was that Alexander Calder's machines play the theremin, that they turn into the instrumentalists. And it was a sonic experiment, and there was no way of knowing whether it would work out or not and what it would sound like. I just thought it would be interesting to have this dialogue between the machines of those two modernists, and then take the results into the present and kind of maybe get some answers or analyze it in kind of thinking of maybe they can give us some references of what the sound of the future could sound like by studying that dialogue.
Did you only use the theremin for this commission, or was there any other instruments involved?
We used several theremins of different prototypes, and we also used the Model 15. That's one of the very first big analog synthesizers, and there was a historic reference because that one was also in the MoMA sculpture garden. I think in 1969, when there was the first supposedly public synthesizer concert, and so we used that same prototype and we channeled that one, we fed that one into one of the theremins that then were triggered by two sculptures of Alexander Calder that were at the time as part of the exhibition. One is Man-Eater in the Garden, a very big, clunky metal sculpture. And I was fantasizing that it would smash into one of the theremins and kick it over and we would record that sound. I really wanted to also break up the untouchable, respectful, distance from the audience to the art objects and tap into the original intention of what Alexander Calder, I think, had in mind, because he wanted his sculptures to be touched and played with.
The commission was taking place in the garden, right? Of the MoMA?
Well, I was commissioned a sound piece, and then I wanted to record and film. I picked two mobiles. One is in the garden, Man-Eater, and the other one was in the first gallery. And they're very different in character, which also gave the sound a certain, which influenced the sound. One is clunky and brute, and the other one, Snowflake number 2, is very frail with tiny little, I don't know what you call it, like little objects that were so thin that I wasn't even sure if it would be enough mass to even alter the sound of the theremin. So it was...
Were you like handling the sculptures by hand, moving them across the theremin? Or?
Well, we wanted to, but because of... these sculptures being very valuable, we were not allowed to touch them. And the conservators of the museums with gloves were the only ones allowed to move the mobiles. And the very light one on the first floor, we actually used a hair blow dryer.
Oh, really?
To move it in the direction of the theremin.
Yeah.
One of the challenges was that it turns out that the mobiles are moving in so many different concentric circles that we really have. I mean, it's quite brilliant how Calder has planned this. So meaning it takes almost an hour for a motion to repeat because there's so many different options. I had underestimated this. So in terms of like how to position the theremins correctly if you don't know exactly where the object will move, and also to position it in a way that it will not touch the theremin because we were not allowed to have that. So we had to constantly move them around and
Yeah. So I also wanted to generally talk about your relationship to the theremin because it's not the most common used electronic instrument. So how did it come about that this became your main instrument?
When I encountered it for the first time at my friend's Larry Seven's house, I just thought, I don't think there's any other electric instrument that has the dynamic range and potential that relates to a acoustic instrument. No other electric instrument has this like very subtle, delicate, detailed dynamic. So I found that really interesting. And then also it was such a stepchild in general, like no one took it serious as an instrument. And the curse and the blessing of the theremin is that you can very easily produce sound. But it begs to differ how well sounding this sound production is, and to actually control it in a musical way, which is an abstract term, but to control the instrument in the notes or the ranges you want to play is just tremendously difficult. So I just thought it deserves and needs love and attention, and see how it can be applied.
So the type of sounds that the theremin produces is very specific. I feel like it can at times sound nostalgic or sad or just emotional in general. Does this affect the way that you play, or?
It's a nice question, and I understand what you're saying. I think the theremin is like your voice. I mean, it really, unlike other instruments, it's your body that produces the sound. So it actually really translates your moods, like your singing voice does. If all the layers of tension or relaxed or happy, sad. Turns out that how you move your body also translates that, and that also when you play a theremin, you realize that your body is constantly in motion, even when you think it's not, because you're just standing and breathing, but the pitch alters, and it's because it responds to the tiniest details. And so the fact that it can sound very sad or melancholic, or it has that range, but it also can sound very brutal or very silly or funny or wild. I mean, for me, it has a really wide range of different colors that, people don't think a theremin is capable of. And this record that we present today and these recordings at the MoMA, I really feel if you listen to that, there are really a lot of different colors.
Yeah.
That you would not think a theremin is behind. It goes beyond some of the classic theremin sound that we know.
Actually, when I listened to the record, I did think that it doesn't really sound like a human is playing this in a way.
Yeah.
Because of how harsh the sound is.
Yeah, some of it. I mean, we to be precise, we did use some effects going through the theremin to add some more diversity. But yes, because of the it was interesting to humanize these objects and to kind of create a tension between them, that they really interact and how does this unfold. And yes, there was a storm warning on that day outside, so that also influenced some of those specifically very strange, harsh, and almost satanistic sounds that were created in this dialogue that at moments surprised us all when we heard it.
Did you like the sculptures that you used? Were they moved by the wind or no?
Yes. So there was one moment where actually one of the metal objects of the mobile did clash into the antenna, and it was not moved by the handlers, but it just was the wind. And luckily we caught that on film because I was extremely excited about this friction that nature brought upon us.
I also wanted to talk about the New York Theremin Society. You're co-founder of it, and you founded it in the early 2000s at Issue Project Room.
Yeah.
What are you guys doing today?
Good question. It's grown. The Theremin Society, the New York Theremin Society, was always intended as a community building platform to, maybe turn that into a movement and to just inform and share the interest and curiosity and exploration of this instrument and how to apply it specifically in different disciplines of the arts. Just because there's such misconception and misunderstanding in what it really can do and how it's being used. So it's been growing tremendously. Out from New York was the perfect place because, of course, we had some thereminists here. There's everything here. But worldwide, the amount of people having studied and playing has grown tremendously in the last 10 years. And the New York Theremin Society is just still a very active platform informing people and connecting them. There are like some 2 releases now that are through this nonprofit organization, as well as a lot of theremin teachings. There's a big interest for that.
There's like workshops you can take.
Yeah, there are workshops all over the world. And it's surprising how many people want to try their hands, or how many people are afraid of thinking, it bites, or they're happy if there's like some easier way to approach it.
So there's so many questions I want to ask you, of course, but I also want to ask you, you're not just a theremin player, even though a lot of people know you for that. You also use other instruments, and you're also a singer, right?
Yes, I started when I was 7 to sing in the opera, in the children choir. So I I guess that was my first professional stage experience. I'm a musicologist. I studied musicology. And I think it's just interesting to constantly expand and evolve. And the theremin really is versatile to apply in sound art and to apply in compositions for soundtracks. Of course, also in combination with other instruments. I like to not be only restricted to using the theremin in composition, for instance, because I do think it has its limitations just as much.
Your previous records, how many previous albums do you have, and like sort of what can we hear on them? It's not just theremin records, even though this one is actually a theremin record, right?
Yeah, I've recorded some solo records before I encountered the theremin, just writing my own music. And how many? That's a good question. There are quite a few releases. I would have to count in my head. It's been adding up. But since around the beginning of 2000, I've always incorporated the theremin also, sometimes in just small roles. But it has a very distinctive voice that really also adds color to my own real voice. I do like working with voices, like having 10, 20 human voices on top of each other. And I do the same thing with the theremin. I kind of apply the instrument like I apply my voice and vice versa.
Okay. And the theremin did like make some appearances in pop music in the 60s, I think, with the Beach Boys, right?
Yes, they used a tenor theremin. Yes, Good Vibration. Captain Beefheart used it. People, there was Lothar and the Hand People, and then it had its first big splash in the movie soundtracks, like with Bernard Herrmann using it in the 50s. I've been lobbying and waiting and working towards popular musicians these days, taking the risk of working with the theremin. And in fact, I have been contacted by the end of this year of some big LA pop artist that wants to go on tour with a theremin player.
That's amazing.
And I was very excited about that. But it's a challenge to do that live because if you can't hear yourself on stage, it's hard to hit the pitch. And so if you have a whole other band around you, and it responds to circuits and winds and all kinds of things that can interfere. In fact, I think today at this performance we have some interference, and it might be that we sent two theremins to the same circuit, and we have to maybe try. It happened. There's always a literally ghost in the machines of the theremin interrupting your, disrupting your plans.
It's like an improvisational instrument by nature.
It just doesn't want to make it easy. It's very quixotic, but that's the beautiful challenge. You have to be on your toes all the time. It's like standing on one leg and on a set of stairs and constantly intonating. I mean, that's for me the literal theremin metaphor.
You've you have performed with other thereminists though, right?
Yes.
So like in one group.
Well, I think one theremin is fun, but if you have 10, then it's even more fun. Yeah, that's a very unique sonic experience that I hope to be able to do more to work with theremin orchestras. And when we teach theremin, we always set up 10 theremins in a circle. So people that have never played it before suddenly are in a position where they all have to play in an orchestra and listen to each other.
Is that, would you be able to do the orchestra in New York? Is there enough theremin players here?
Easy.
Yeah.
We did it exactly a year ago at the Ambient Church.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I know that
we had
program.
a nice theremin ensemble performing, and it sounded good.
That's amazing. I really hope to see that someday.
Yeah. I mean, of course, if there's one player playing one sour note, the whole thing goes downhill. But
Yeah.
there's some tricks with specifically the theremin where you can set the scales and root notes, so that helps.
Is there anything else you want to talk about that we should mention? Do you have like something coming up you want to mention?
Well, there's now the Calder plays theremin. So the sonic experiments that we recorded at the MoMA are now also on a vinyl record. The record is also called Calder Plays Theremin, and you can find it at the MoMA store or at the New York Theremin Society's and Friedman Gallery's Bandcamp. It's a co-release, and maybe it's also interesting to mention that there's also a release of these recordings in a binaural mix only on an audio cassette. So, and that's by a Berlin label called Kinship.
Okay, thank you so much, Dorit, for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
You will find details for where you can buy the album in the show notes, and now you can hear an excerpt from tonight's performance.
to